Everyone. Hello, and welcome to our third episode of our four-part series of playtests here on Wandering DM. My name is Chris Geary, and we have a lovely group of people here from the Omens Rising team. And we're going to continue the story that we are creating and talk a little bit about the mechanics of the world and the lore of the world, as it were. Tonight, our focus is going to be a little bit on monsters and mythologies of sorts, beliefs, that sort of thing. So I want to start, and we can go around the group, and let's start with Wasa at the top. And Wasa, go ahead and remind us who you are, and then tell us about one tale or piece of folklore or something like that that would inspire monsters or some other belief system.
Will do. Hey everyone, Wasa, they, them, and I am the 8th attack person for Omens Rising. I do a lot of NDA related writing that I can't talk about, but NDAs and writing, that's what I do. And in terms of sort of like myths and folklore, one of my favorites and one of the stories that I find absolutely fascinating is relating to Filipino folktale with the Manananggal, which is sort of a vampire-esque kind of monster, which is like a severed torso. And the interesting thing about that is because it's a shift in a story, it relates back to sort of like the pre-colonial Philippines and the Babaylan back then. And due to influences, the story was changed into sort of this this creature that preys upon unsuspecting people at nighttime. Vampires, little bit of cannibalism, a little bit of the creepy stuff, but we all know that Southeast Asia is haunted, so that's one of my favorite monster creatures, among others, but that's the one that I'll have a brief chat about, I guess.
Awesome. All right. We're going to go down this time to Leona.
Oh, we're switching it up.
Yep. I'm throwing us for a loop.
Uh-huh. You are. Hello, my name is Leona. You can find me on Twitter at the Leona Maple. I am one of the writers here at Omens Rising for the Twin Cultures, and I am also a special consultant. And I think I'm going to talk about Ravan or Ravana, who is the 10-headed king of the demons from the Ramayana, which is a great Hindu epic tale that takes about 3 days sometimes for people to perform on stages and things like that. I remember growing up with the story of the Ramayana and just hearing about this like 10-headed evil man who like abducts the devoted wife, and obviously the protagonist has to go on this long journey to like rescue her and vanquish the demon and all that kind of stuff along the way. But I always just remember that story, and I think actually, now that I think about it, I think what also influences that is that we actually have a festival that ties into that story, and on the 10th day of that festival, in many places they actually erect like large versions of this 10-headed demon, and they light a bonfire to light him on fire. So it's been a part of my life in a bunch of different ways, so I think that's why I'm picking that one tonight.
Excellent, thank you. Let's go ahead and go to Emmer.
Hello, that's me. I'm Ramirez. I use they, she pronouns. I'm one of the writers here and in too many places. I do streaming and stuff. And I didn't grow up with too many like monster or mythical being stories beyond like generally knowing all the ones from Egyptian mythology, which there aren't actually that many monsters per se in Egyptian mythology compared to like Greek and Roman and even Norse mythology, which tends to like emphasize a lot more that. But in Islam, like the major class of supernatural being is one form or another of jinn. and specific one that and so in the way that's worked historically is that whenever a group has adopted Islam or Islam spread there, whether by the spread of empire or by spread through trade and willing conversion, they generally end up with reimagining a lot of the creatures there as jinn. And so, whoops. And so you see that happening in a lot of places, jinn that have roots in various cultures. And one example in Egypt is El Nadeha, which are very similar to, if you're familiar with sirens. They are river spirits that live in the Nile, and they sing out, calling to people to join them. There's a lot of different myths on what the Nadeha does. Sometimes it will specifically target people if two people are walking by the river, and it will target one to call. It will call one to come join it so that it can drown them, but the other is there and is supposed to stop them. It'll only do it when there's two, as like a sort of test to see what will happen. And sometimes it'll call out to people. There's stories where it'll call out to people just in their home or anywhere. It's one of those myths that has taken a lot of forms depending on where it takes place culturally. But yeah, that's the one.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Fen, remind us who you are and what's a story, big or small, folklore, myth, whatever the case may be.
Hello, I'm Fen. Am I okay this evening? Am I too soft? Am I too loud? Sorry. Hi, I'm Fen. It's been a bit of a day, so I'm sorry.
No, you're doing great. A little bit soft, but good.
Okay. Hopefully that'll help. So, hi, I'm Fen. I've been doing the character sheet design for Omens Rising, and one of the things I was always interested in as a child, and it is more of my own personal interest than it's something I really was told a lot when I was younger, because I come from a world where my family doesn't really believe in a lot of or really tell a lot of tales about monsters and creatures like that I can remember. But I do remember being very, very fascinated by Lovecraftian elder gods growing up. And one of those big one for me was I'm gonna probably butcher it a little bit, and I apologize in advance, but it's Yog Sothoth. And just everything. I did a deep dive a little bit later on in my life where I was like, what does all this mean? What does it mean? And it was a very fun time. Just everything about the idea that that was brought forth in these sort of things, like kind of how it was, and then how it was kind of interpreted in Doctor Who with the great and like intelligence type deal, and how it kind of is like the all-seeing type individual. But yeah, so anyway.
I can dig it. Thank you. And then last but not least, Jamar.
So I'm Jamar. I write for the Kisnoek, which are a bunch of witches in the Omens Rising world. I am writing a graphic novel that happened recently. Well, that started happening recently. I was like, should I go to grad school or should I just make a graphic novel? And I went with the latter. Who knew? As far as myths go, I like too many, making this question really hard. But one I like to think about in particular is my mom Brigitte. She's like from Haitian voodoo, but she's actually an imported Loa from Ireland. She's like likened to Saint Brigitte. And because of one thing that the Caribbean and like is used to doing is like kind of like amalgamating the cultures that are there and creating something new. And it's very unique in that way. It's like it's not nearly the same as like traditional like Yoruba, which is like the African source religion kind of. And I have another one, and it's a short one, but it's Santa Muerte. It's kind of the reverse thing where it's a singular deity that has not moved, it is not going anywhere, but like even with colonialism, it is like changed because she was like a Aztec goddess of bones, and now she's a bone woman. But she effectively, like, despite the Catholicizing, I don't think that's a word, of Central America, she persisted because of her strong cultural presence. And that's that on that.
Neat. Now, all of those are great examples, and any of the beliefs can charge manifestations of aether that can become monsters. Monsters do not have a set morality. A lot of the ones that we talked about were ferocious or fearsome. But in the world of Omens Rising, a collective belief can manifest together some form of creature or event. The same way that people would believe in the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus as well. That alone can make that come to life. Luck being affected by black cats, the power of different items and their ability to access the aether. Say something in our world like a Ouija board to talk to spirits. Each of those things, their power is in their belief. And their belief is basically their life. So the only way in order for them to be truly defeated is to remove the need to believe in them any longer. So I'm going to use that as our segue back to our village of silent walkers, a collective of folks who are of the concept of those who wish to learn. However, they are content to learn. However, they have been trapped, willingly or unwillingly, but they've been stuck in one place for centuries now. Well, about a century, decades now. The Shades of Once Were is what the village is referred to as. We ended with a conversation between an elder named Aurora and Wander. We're going to kind of fast forward through some of that back and forth and the information that would have been shared through a series of question and answers, some polite and, shall we say, culturally ritualistic ways of greeting things and bringing people together. It is learned that the particular issues surrounding the Shades of Once Were have been divined to have to do with a feeling of being trapped, a fear of moving, or the two different ways that it continues to come back and forth. Feeling trapped, fearing moving. Aurora tells you that there's definitely a presence within this place, but it does not wander far from the village. And when it does, it's typically only does so if there are villagers nearby. Some of the things that have spontaneously combusted and or exploded, one was a grain silo. Another was a cellar that was storing roots and preserves and some smoked meats. The primary well collapsed inexplicably one night, just a week and a half ago.
These people are struggling. I think if we're done questioning Aurora,
Mhm.
now would be a good time to kind of like force myself to like wander up to everyone in the group and hand them their shard of weird glass, monster detection glass.
Okay. So that's a great thing because I wanted to touch on this. So we're going to be looking at one of the steps of Etsuki's path to restoration of their connection to what was it again? Their connection to
His connection to belonging. So
belonging.
part of
That's
the
right.
group in general.
Yeah. So what do you say to your fellow travelers as you hand them this lens?
I don't really say anything, especially not to. I'm probably gonna move toward Flick first.
Mm-hmm.
Flick is the quietest in his mind, so he's gonna move to Flick first and just kind of hold his hand out in front of Flick.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so he's not going to say anything.
He closes his eyes and goes, "Can I see your hand?"
Flick, like, extends their hand over just to see the hands.
And then he places the glass in your hand. And he looks away. He's like staring off into the distance, but he explains, these are they're rudimentary, but these should help with finding whatever it is that is in this village. I figured it might help. If everyone else is around, he speaks loud enough for people to hear, but he looks at no one. And I made one for everyone. So
Okay.
here you go. And he kind of like places them all in everyone's hand if they haven't reached out, but he's not gonna like as distantly as possible. And then he's once all of them are distributed, he goes, "All right, that's enough," and then walks away.
If there is a moment where Etsuki like even like can catch like looking at Flick or seeing Flick's like hands, there's probably like a small gesture of like thanks. It's sort of like the quiet appreciation that Flick would use as a response, like to essentially say like I appreciate this and I'm thankful for this and all that.
Yeah, he probably would have. He spent a lot of time like darting his eyes between people, like never too long, because if other people look at you while you're looking at them, you explode. And so he probably caught it and smiled while looking in a completely opposite direction, but does not stop looking away. He's not people.
That is
Gotcha.
all groovy.
But now you guys all have a glass lens that you can look through, and there's a 13 success rating on sniffing out little monsters should we need it.
Does anybody take a look through the crystallized lens?
I'm curious
Everyone,
enough.
this just like this.
Yeah. Got enough curiosity to check it out.
Okay. So, Hyatt,
Yeah.
where do they look? Where do they point the lens at when they look through it?
What's around us?
You're kind of in the center of the village. That's where the elder's hut was,
Mhm.
or not hut, home was, and which means you're near where the main well would have been, the one that
Okay.
collapsed about a week and a half ago.
Right. Let's point it at the well itself. Let's go with the straightforward answer.
Okay. And by pointing it at the well itself, you will feel a presence looming over it more than see something. When you are carefully kind of like focus upon it, if you choose to, you will see like an aura, but it doesn't radiate off of it. It's more like the steam coming off of something cold in the sunlight.
Mm. Okay. Does anyone else notice something about the well?
Oh, do you want us to have a look at the well too, or is it as in without the lens?
Ivor?
Mm-hmm. Are there a lot of people around this area?
There's a few people that you can see kind of tending to either their homes or maybe gardens nearby them down the different pathways between buildings. It's not really roadways as much as it's pathways. As you know, Flick and Wander would be familiar. Silent walkers aren't really known for industrial sized equipment. So they typically travel by foot in a lot of cases, or with their shields. And so they don't need wide, sprawling streets or anything of that nature in order to move things about. And it seems to be no different. There are carts that are being pulled, but they're something that can be pulled by one person or pushed by one person, more like what we might think of as a modern day wheelbarrow than carts that need beasts of burden to move them. And but for the most part, there's not a whole lot. Even Salutations has moved on to something else in the village. Aurora would have let you know that a lot of the villagers are out tending to the fields to try and see if they can rehabilitate them in any way, as food stores are getting treacherously less and less.
Yep. Because I think Flick would be interested in seeing sort of like the reaction or response, like Hyatt was had a look at the well itself and the aura around it. Flick kind of wants to see whether or not they get an understanding of the connection between this well and the people, whether or not that's just a complete disconnect, or they're avoiding the area, or that aura or smoke is kind of more being like emanating or like grabbing at other people's sort of like auras or energies or anything like that.
It seems to be contained into itself. Nobody seems to be avoiding it on purpose. I mean, a few people might be worried about it collapsing. They don't know how bad the ground is around it, and they might skirt it. Or maybe they do believe that it is haunted or something of that nature. So, but overall, it's not like a pariah of some sort where people won't look at it or anything of that sort.
Gotcha. Okay. And if we follow sort of that smoke, does it?
It's kind of just wafting up into the air right now.
Okay. Have you looked inside? Can I peek?
Sure, you can try and
Oh,
peek
okay.
inside.
That's
Are you going to try and peek with the lens or without the lens?
With.
Okay. As you start to peek with the lens, you'll notice being, well, first of all, let me ask, your footwear. Are the soles retracted or are they engaged? Are you barefoot on the ground?
I'd be barefoot if I was trying
Okay.
to get a good understanding of the area.
As you approach, you don't feel too concerned about the safety of the ground collapsing beneath your feet. There are no telltale signs. There's still a little bit of hesitation because it was some sort of explosion that collapsed the well, but there's nothing imminent. Like when you step there, you're not like, uh-oh, I got to be careful. And as you begin to lean over, you'll see the rising smoke coming from, or steam coming off of what's left of the stones that have fallen in on themselves. And as your eyes adjust to look a bit deeper, some of the steam kind of swirls and seems to dive into the well, and it coalesces with some sort of like face for just a second and then disappears.
I don't think I like that.
But you are pretty sure that the eyes of the face were looking directly into your eyes.
I don't like that.
The face, was it like humanoid? Okay.
Fairly nondescript.
I wander over to Flick. Where'd the little smoke thing go? Did the smoke leave?
No, it came back to normal.
Okay.
After that happened, it just kind of swirled around the rim and then dove in and then popped back to like it reset almost.
Then, what was that? Why did it move? Because obviously Etsuki's been using his lens the whole time.
Did you see that? You
saw
saw that, right?
I saw it move. I didn't see it. Anything.
Oh, I saw a face. It kind of.
Did you recognize the face?
Did I? Or was it? It was nondescript. Was it? Chris, was it sort of like regular? Was there a expression or anything, or it was just staring into me?
It was very stoic.
Okay.
In its expression. The eyes, I don't felt.
Have two eyes.
Yeah, two eyes, but it felt almost lifeless.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's something missing there. It didn't feel active. It felt passive in many ways.
Mm-hmm. As if it wasn't trying to communicate anything, it just wanted to be present rather than being like...
It wanted to show its presence.
Oh, I see. I will explain all of this to Etsuki and Hyatt. No, that's never happened before. I've never looked into a well and the well looked back.
Guessing that's not particularly normal here.
No, I look over at Wanda. It's like, I'm guessing that's not normal here.
Wander would know that it is not escalated to that point by the time that they had left. Correct.
Did you ever see any?
You will remember
sorry.
one thing, though, from the face. In a slight discoloration of the steam, slightly darker than the rest of it, on their chin and going out from their chin and across their jawline was one of the different symbols of the silent walkers. It indicates one who thinks deeply or may feel they are nearing the end of their journey time.
Mm-hmm. I'll let them know that. It appears that there is knowledge of an end. Is that sort of like a bad omen kind of sort of thing, or sort of like this is what they're trying to express to myself, like the normal way that a silent walker would express on the
I wouldn't
date?
say that it's a bad omen. If it is, I mean, it seems to be using a nonverbal form of communication of this culture to share something with whoever it was that looked in. And at this point, it was you.
Yeah, I will look over to Wanda and let them know and sort of like trace what I remember, just like the description over my face of what the markings were.
The bulk of the line work seemed to be, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Broken lines or dotted lines in many places. It wasn't, and you don't know if that had to do with the element of the steam itself, or if that has to do with the lack of feeling connected that dotted lines typically mean in Silent Walker lore.
They want to talk about the end of the journey. Theirs or someone else's?
Well, should we look at the other places to see whether or not we see something that is similar, or do we try to figure this one out first before we move on to the next place?
I don't think we have much to go on here. We can always circle back.
Before we move on, Robin hasn't left Wander's side. Wherever Wander goes, she will follow. But she kind of is curious to look at the people through the lens. And since everyone else is looking at the well where a phenomenon is occurring, what happens if at the same time Robin looks at the people of this place? And obviously trying to figure out, if there really is a connection here. Is it, if while something is happening at the well, is there also something that's happening to the people, or is it just like the presence has just kind of moved over there, or just trying to figure out if there's a correlation of any sort.
From the vantage point that you all have currently, and none of the other peoples that are near you are really all that close, maybe 15, 20 yards. And you don't see much of anything lingering there. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't, but in order to see a lot of what you just found, it seems to have been proximity.
Okay. Well, then it makes sense to probably go find the rest of the people.
I think we should, or at least some of us should go to either where the silo exploded or where the crops are just not happening.
Yeah, there's the silo, the fields that are fallow, and the root cellar besides the well.
Oh, cellar because it's closer? And we'll just work our way to...
The cellar is the closest of them from the well, yeah.
Then yeah, I say we work our way over. Starting
Okay.
with the cellar seems like a good idea.
The root cellar, the building that was attached to the root cellar seems to still be standing. It has definitely been repaired, and this particular instance was some months ago.
Hmm.
You'll know that according to Aurora, it's been getting more and more frequent. Originally, it was just flashes of explosions in the fields to begin with, not near anything necessary. However, it started getting closer and closer within the last couple of years. And then each one is closer together in its timing. What might have happened once growing season started happening once every 9 months, then 6 months, then closer and closer. And the root cellar is in succession is the third one. So the well is the most recent, the silo, then the root cellar, and then the rest of them have been consolidated or basically kept to the fields primarily. Some hunting trails where they believe trees were felled, but they didn't hear the explosions, but they're just trunks that were ripped apart and blocking normal game trails and things of that nature. So the root cellar itself is kind of collapsed in. The stairs are still somewhat navigable to get down because they were packed earth or packed soil. And but for the most part, it looks like they filled in the root cellar as part of keeping up the building above it, as well as putting in a couple supports where the doorway once stood. How close do you want to get to the root cellar?
I will look inside it.
So you're going to go down the steps?
Yes.
Okay.
I will follow.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
As the two of you descend down, you'll notice that some of it is the coolness of the soil itself, but it does seem to get distinctly colder as you descend these less than half dozen steps that are still navigable. And as you kind of peer down into what is now more or less a crawl space, because they've filled with excess soil and rock, and even in some cases, chunks of lumber, like roots and tree roots that have been pulled up were tossed in there to kind of be filler. You'll find, looking through the lens, that steaminess, kind of this haze, a foggy haze throughout that crawl space.
Just the crawl space, not the whole internal.
You can't, like everything else internal. Think of it this way: if it was 6 feet tall, about 5 to 5.5 feet of that is now dirt, stone, and large chunks of lumber that they packed in there, alongside some supports to kind of hold up the building above it. Right. And to keep people out of there.
This planet has an internal the same way our planet. This room has an internal the same way our planet has an internal.
Yeah. Then does it make a face? I'm like looking for a face.
Okay. You do not seem to see a face as you're concentrating. Are you actually trying to pierce into the aetherial from here, though?
I will. Given the fact that is my shtick, I will do that.
Okay.
He will push a little further and try to, like, I don't know. I don't want to say grasp at what it is, but just like connect with it better to understand what is going on there.
Okay. So let's go ahead and draw 2 cards.
The best part, drawing the cards.
And I'm assuming that you're sticking with aetherial as your aptitude that you're going to use?
Absolutely.
And then what part of self does Etsky wish to use as they engage?
I'm trying to think. I think Etsky will actually use... I was thinking he was going to use like spades and like the mental, but I think he's actually going to try for an emotional connection with whatever it is.
Okay.
It's like an emotional presence. And so we're going to use the Queen of Hearts.
Okay.
I'm just gonna throw this card.
And with the Queen of Hearts, Queen is worth 12 points. Queen is also the card of nurture and wisdom. The 12 is the number of balancing the world itself. There are 12 months in the year. There are 4 seasons. Each one has 3 months within it, or 3 cycles within each season. 3 times 4 is 12, so on and so forth. We find Simon, you've got a window popped open on your Roll20 from me earlier. If you can close that. And what you're going to find with your 9 base is a 21. For something like this, what you're looking for, it's been a little while. It still is enough to pass. In fact, it's enough for a full success. And we find ourselves, the target being 14, 21 being equal to our threshold plus 50%. That is a complete success. And you'll pierce through the veil of the Aether in order to see something. But before I do that, what is Hyatt doing while Etsky is leaning in and trying to look deeper?
I think Hyatt's mostly just there to support at this point. I think at this point Etsky has proven that it's got more capability of identifying things like this. And so Hyatt is there to help out and trusting Etsky's vision here.
Excellent.
Sure
Now, the help mechanic, if you want to actively play a role in helping,
why not?
If you have a card that is of the suit that's preferred, in this case, hearts, and greater than the queen, you could take the queen from the field and play a king or ace or joker in its place to boost Etsky's attempt. Now, a queen's a pretty high card. Yeah, that may not be the case.
Yeah, I do not.
No problem. But that's kind of how that help mechanic works.
Yes.
So, as you have your, Hyatt there kind of supporting your efforts, Etsky, you're looking through and you start to see movement in the fog. It looks like feet moving. A large group of people all marching in the same direction. They're the same cadence as they go. And the longer you focus on it, you start to hear the sounds of footsteps.
I'm going to close my eyes and kind of see where that sound is, if it has a location or if it's just around. If it was a sound I could follow.
Gotcha. Right now, it is full surround sound. It sounds almost as though they are walking right over the top of you. However, after a few moments of concentration, there is a desperate and painful cry, and then nothing.
My natural assumption is, did someone get left behind? And so I was wondering if it sounds like it's distantly, a cry that's from a distance, or if it's among the footsteps.
It would be among the footsteps.
Okay.
Maybe at the front of them.
Do I hear this too,
but
or
not
just
the back of them?
Or just Etsky?
What is your base aetherial aptitude?
That is a good question. Let's see. My base aetherial is a rank 3 baseline.
Gotcha. It does not resonate with you.
Okay. Okay.
What you do get, though, is a blast of cool air that comes out from the cellar about the time that everything goes silent for Etsky.
So what do you see?
I heard footsteps, lots of them, and they were all marching in unison.
To where? Or from where?
It just felt like it was all around me. I really couldn't.
There was one specific direction the feet were going when you were watching them.
Oh, where was that?
It would have been toward the southern exit from the valley.
Okay.
Mm.
I just kind of put my hand in that direction. I don't think Etsy is very good at directions, so he's gonna be like, this way, and then he's gonna like kind of guide Hyatt out and kind of point and see where like that where in that direction it is when you're not inside of a tiny cellar.
That direction would be toward the south of town, where the fields are located.
Okay.
It sounded like they were all going in that one direction, and it was so loud. And then somewhere near, I would guess the front, there was a scream, like a piercing scream, and then nothing. Whatever happened, if there's something that happened, it was tragic, or at least it felt tragic.
Well, it sounds like the fields might be our next stop. We already had business there, and if something that happened here is related to that, there's even more reason to go now.
How when we regroup, I kind of give everyone the spiel. Lots of stepping.
Agreed.
And would Flick recognize that the stepping is sort of like the symbol of sort of the silent walkers and their constant journeying?
It would be that would be one way to interpret them.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I can't help but wonder if this, whatever it is, I mean, if the message is about the end of a journey, and I don't know, I just get this feeling that these explosions are possibly their way of trying to get the people here moving again. Possibly. I'm not sure if that's right, though.
Mm.
And it doesn't explain why everyone got stuck here in the first place. Well, I mean, the storms kind of did that, so I don't know.
I think the fields will have more answers.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Very more specific answers, I hope.
I think it's clear that something doesn't want this place to exist as is, but whether that is a sign for the people here to keep moving or something else is still unclear.
Etsky's actually going to look to wander before they like move and kind of like he's working on it. It takes him a second, but he's like, does that mean anything to you?
The marching.
I'm trying to see if like maybe there's a local history that might be known to Wander specifically that might help interpret this.
I guess the follow-up question is, would that be something that Wander would recall there being a march to get to where they are now? Or is that not?
That is not something that is from Wander's immediate experience.
Okay.
What Wander could discuss is some of the once were tales of how their peoples used to move throughout the entire region and not just this valley. And they would travel, depending on the seasons, to different places of that they would call home. Different months under different constellations would bring different types of prosperity to Wander's people. And whether or not that's true is something that no one living can confirm, but it is a story that has been kept alive over the generations.
Something that their parents told them, and their grandparents told their parents.
Yes.
And that would be something they would caveat that discussion of, that it's not something that they have immediate knowledge of, but before their time.
Yeah.
They
5-6 generations ago. It's not ancient history.
No.
But it's long enough that it would not be of personal experience.
Right.
Yeah. But nobody's around to verify those claims anymore. So.
He's worth a shot. Then he beelines to the field.
To the field.
Etsky likes to move.
Wait, are we stopping at the silo first? Or is Etsky just gone?
Etsky, because of his vision, he's just like, I know where I'm going now.
Okay.
Yeah, same here. I'm just like, all right, this is the spot.
Do we feel like splitting up, or are we all just gonna?
Sure. You guys can split if we like, and we can have two separate interactions.
Depending on Wander and Flicker, I'm good either way.
Okay.
If you guys go to the silo, you guys can go next.
Okay. So Hyatt and Etsky are for sure going to the fields. Who's going with them, and who's going to the silo, if anyone?
I will probably split up from Wanda. Just so if Wanda goes to the field, then I'll go to the silo.
Okay. And vice versa.
Vice versa.
Yeah. I think Wander would want to check out the silo before the fields.
We also don't have to split if people would rather just stick together.
That's also true. I guess the question is, do we feel like splitting? And that's more a question for Robin / Leona, is like, do we feel the need, is time an urgent thing that we need to maximize our use of? I think that's the question that Wander will posit to Robin real quick.
I mean, I just get this feeling of the faster we can find answers, the better. And the more information we have, the more likely we'll be able to put together the whole picture, you know?
Then let's gather as much evidence as we can.
It's okay if you want to go to the field. I don't mind going to the silo alone.
No one should travel alone.
I appreciate that.
And then they will begin walking towards the silo.
Okay. So we have Flick going with Hyatt and Etsky to the fields. Then, correct, Wasa?
Yes.
All right. So now we are. We'll just kind of fast forward to the silo, or the place of where the silo once stood. So the posts that were sunk into the ground to kind of set the platform on to keep the grain off the actual ground itself are still there, but they're the tops of what's left are shattered and broken. There's some debris still kind of left from it, but it looks like a lot of it was collected and repurposed and reused in some way or another. When you look through or look at the area through the lens, you find that same kind of fog or steam coming off the posts, much like what was described to you at the well. And do either of you do anything with it? or with the lens or anything of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if this is the same fog and steam, I would probably want to take a closer look at it first with the lens, just see if it looks any different under that. Since I have the tool, why not utilize it?
Okay. Is Hyatt then going to the silo?
Oops, I misheard. I heard
Yeah,
field.
no, sorry. This is at the silo. My apologies. Yes.
No, that's probably me.
So,
Is the steam close enough to touch? I wonder.
oh yeah.
Okay. Then Robin will kind of, while still looking through the lens, kind of reach out to touch it to see if anything happens.
Through the lens, it seems to move and shift the way that any sort of steam would, but you feel nothing.
Okay.
Does the steam come off of a specific piece?
It comes off
As
of the four posts that were sunk into the four corner posts that were sunk into the ground to raise the platform.
Gotcha. They will Wander will place a hand on one of the four posts.
Are you using your lens to watch what you're doing, or is this some other type of activity?
This is actually going to be, they're going to ask for consent to a telepathic communication.
Okay.
As has been explained to Wanda a bit, whatever this is utilizes the Silent Walker markings.
Mm-hmm.
They have come to a possibly incorrect conclusion that that might be an option to utilize. And so it'll reach out to whatever entity is there.
Okay.
And to see if it responds.
What would you like to use an aptitude when you do this, or are you just going off of just a straight role play aspect here?
If you think it would make sense to do an aptitude, I think empath would make the most sense. But if simply for a role play perspective, I would also understand that. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I think empath would be perfectly acceptable here.
Okay. So I will draw 2, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's make 4 cards. Okay. I had one idea, but the cards I got is giving me another. So I'm going to play this Queen of Hearts.
Oh, the queen makes a debut again.
And
Multiple Queens of Hearts in one session.
Because you shuffle after every time that they're discarded.
I mean, yes, but also statistically, it's just very
That's awesome,
fun.
isn't it? Right?
But I think as they lean into their emotional side of things for this, because of it is their home, and they are trying to find an understanding that they can get their people through it.
And what is the base empathy for?
I believe it is going to be rank 3, so 9.
Okay.
Let me make sure I am correct in that, but I believe.
Yep.
PDF?
Rank 3 is 9.
Yes. Yeah. And also, yeah.
Who from Wander's past, family in particular, was Wander closest with, who is no longer with them?
I want to say it's their older sister.
What happened to their older sister?
She and the rest of their family left to start over. Before Wander about a year before Wander went their own way to follow their own path. And that's the last that Wander really remembers of them. So whatever happened to her after is not something that Wander is aware of.
Okay.
But if
But
this
meta,
was,
we're playing that for this purpose, there's someone who is no longer with us.
that is fine, and I'm not against that.
Okay.
So I that would, and that is as Fen, I'm super game for that.
Okay.
For Wander, that'll be a little bit heartbreaking, but that's okay.
No problem. I just wanted to be clear that that's
Yes,
part of the
that's
stipulation.
fine.
So
That is
whoever you give
entirely
me
okay.
is someone who's dead.
I am comfortable giving you
Gotcha.
Wander's sister, who is now dead.
Gotcha. As you are seeking a connection, you get, it feels like a hand is holding your wrist,
The one that is touching the post.
the one that is touching the post. And you cannot, no matter how hard you try, if you try, you cannot remove, Wander cannot remove their hand from the post.
I think Wander is familiar with the hand, and they will not make any attempt to remove it.
And the, I guess, communication that you get, since it's not a voice, is going to be a series of images, starting with a reflection of your sister. Reflection in a still pool, not of this valley. And she is in quiet contemplation, kind of just staring in, looking for answers. These are the feelings that you're getting from this. And then it flashes to her departing. It's like a third person view up and above. And it's her departing the rest of your family from a town that you have not ventured to yet. And you know that where she's walking is back to this valley. And then it flashes again as she's making her way through the fields back to the town itself. And she is engulfed in one of the explosions. And there's literally nothing of her left. You hear, or not hear, you get this deep feeling inside to leave.
I can't yet.
And the words kind of bubble into your mind. The message bubbles into your mind that this place will kill you. And the you that is being used is not the you as in Wander. It is more the you as in your people, who you are as a people. If you stay, leave now and do not return. And the now isn't immediate, like this second, but it's immediate future tense. Does that make sense? Because a lot of this is through feelings, and the words can't truly describe it concisely the way that it feels. Like the emotion's there and you know what it means, but finding the words to describe it are awkward. And that's the best that you can get. And then the feeling of that hand on your wrist fades away.
they leave their hand on the post for a little while longer. Robin, I think as you look around, you eventually turn back to Wander, and that you see that they have just 2 tears, one on each eye, just rolling down as they kind of stare off into the kind of more desolate areas where the storm is really raging throughout the valley. And eventually they will recognize that you are looking at them, and then they will remove their hand.
She will approach Wander and ask the question that has been on her mind since they got here.
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay?
No. But I do not have time to mourn while people are still in danger.
I understand. Whatever you saw, I'm deeply sorry. I am here for you.
I appreciate your presence. Maybe the others have more actionable info outside of just leave.
I can empathize with that message. I mean, it feels like everything that we've looked at that's been covered by this presence is things that are foundational, posts that are planted in the ground, a cellar dug into the ground, a well that deep dives into the ground. Like, I mean, it all feels like it has to do with the fact that these people have stayed here. I don't know if it's something to do with the ground itself or the metaphorical grounding.
Do you know much of Silent Walker culture?
Only what I know through you.
Then you know that we are mostly nomadic in nature.
Indeed.
I'm sure that plays a factor in what has happened here.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
I think our next task should be finding a place beyond the valley, outside of the storms, for them to be. Because they cannot stay. We cannot stay.
I understand.
Now, Robin, one of the things that you'll remember from interacting with Wander is that Wander is just 100% convinced that the storms have not truly waned that much. Because this village has this belief that they're just outside the valley waiting for them. And that's why no one ever returns. And that's kind of given Wander this hyper vigilance about the storms and has made them very prepared for when there are storms that come, though you've only encountered one minor aether storm in all of your time together. It still is kind of this rooted belief in the character. But from your travels, you know them to be sparse and usually signs that something else is wrong in the area that has unbalanced the world, or that part of the world, that region. And you don't remember seeing any when you flew in. It was a clear day. It was actually a very beautiful day. So, while you're pondering that, I'm going to shift over to the fields, where Hyatt and Etsky and Flick are looking, investigating. Now, the fields are pretty standard. They're what we would think of. They're plowed in pretty normal rows, but they have all been hand plowed. They have not been really done much else with. Some basic rudimentary technology to speed it up, but no beasts of burden, you've noticed, at all in this village. So everything that they can do themselves. And if they need to, they can leave it behind.
Okay. And what do the fields? I mean, is there anything immediately off about the fields on our arrival?
Yes, the biggest thing that is immediately off is the fact that the soil is gray.
Mm.
You do not have to be a farmer or a scientist to know that the soil itself, the topsoil, is not fertile.
Mm.
Is it like ash gray?
It is ash gray, yes, but it is not necessarily ash consistency.
Okay.
Lick will probably be sort of just like taking their time walking around barefoot, trying to sort of get an understanding of this area that way.
Mm-hmm. Some of the things that you'll pick up are, it's very uneven, unsettling. It doesn't feel good on your feet. Some places have lots of rocks in them that are uncomfortable. Some places have like sharp rocks, and some places it's just a weird kind of dust bath of sorts that you weren't expecting necessarily. And so it's this shift in texture and everything as you go along, and nothing feels right about it.
Stick your hands in the soil.
You'll get a very similar kind of feeling as you stick your hands in the soil and kind of run your fingers through it. It's a mixture of very fine dirt and chunks of rock or sticks or things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hyatt, you know almost immediately. Nothing. There is very little vitae left in the soil.
Yeah. I want to try something.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see how it responds to vitae. So I'm going to grab a little bit of the soil, pull out my mortar and pestle, and in one, I want to grind up some fresh herbs I have with me.
Okay.
And the other, I want to put some of this soil.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to attempt to transfer some vitae to it to see what comes of it.
Which aptitude would you like to use to make this connection?
I think ethereal feels like the logical choice here. But actually, no, let's go with elucidative.
Okay. I like that. As you're trying to cut through all of the extra and get to the root cause, so to speak.
Well, we'll find out if roots can even grow here, but yes.
And what part of self? Your ethereal self, emotional self, mental, or physical?
Let's see. I think physical.
Okay, draw 2 cards. And actually, you can draw those first and then make that determination.
Okay.
I got ahead of myself. So
let's do that. Hit. Draw 2. Oh, it's not liking my button presses. Okay. Maybe there's...
There we go.
No, physical works.
Okay. Oh, another queen.
I'm going to discard.
Okay. Oops. Let me grab that. I've got another queen. This time the queen of diamonds. The queen of well-being and health. Of resiliency. And persistence. And what is your base elucidative?
My base elucidative is 9.
9. So that's a 21 as well. So again, that's a full success.
And I'm also using my mortar and pestle, which is my significant item.
Correct. So it's a 22 that doesn't just meet a full success, it breaches that, which is excellent. And as you are mixing or grinding up the herbs and working to transfer the life essence from the live herbs to the dead soil, for lack of a better term, you will see it start to shift and change. It starts to become a little damp, a little muddy.
Okay.
And then it starts to change in shape.
Shape. Okay.
And it makes itself into a little clay compass that points south from here.
Oh.
Etsky is like hovering.
They
Weird
hover
new
like-
magic. I would like to perceive it.
Yeah. And basically what you see is so there's herbs that I crush up, right? And you see them begin to wither a little. And then I think you might notice, since you're paying close attention, you would notice the tattoos on my body. They're a brownish color and they become a more full brown, as if they're more freshly applied for a few seconds. And then they dull again as the clay begins to absorb the vitae.
Oh, that he is about to speak, and then he was like, "Never mind, I'm not gonna do that." But he is smiling, despite it being like a very weird time to smile.
Mm-hmm. I think Hayat is going to turn to Flicker, be like, I'm going to take it that soil around here normally doesn't do that.
I'm pretty sure I've never seen soil do that in my entire life. Yeah, because of my family background with like the horticulture and things like that, this is very odd, I believe. Correct, Chris? Like,
Absolutely. I mean, there is something else at work here. It was not simply the soil that made that happen.
Is there a way to understand what made that happen, or to sort of like...
Well, I'm assuming Etsky was still using the lens while Etsky was watching everything, because Etsky's kind of been doing that. Is that correct?
It's a lot of like,
Then one of the things that Etsky would have noticed is there was a spectral hand molding that soil into the clay compass while that was going on. Little tiny spectral hand.
Oh,
like
Not like a baby's hand, but just like a miniature version of an adult hand. You'll also notice that your familiar has not touched the ground since you guys got to the village.
Yeah, that's pretty normal for me. But
basically, it wrapped itself across your shoulders like it was a fox fur shawl.
Oh.
I think now will be the time where he actually mentions like his talk with the ground earlier.
And just for everyone, as you start that, Wander and Robin will arrive as you're having that conversation about Etsky's talk with the ground.
I think now is a good time to mention the ground here is healthy, but something is making it very tired. And I'm guessing this is just one of the spots that it is very, very tired. But it is something else. Something is actively, I'm assuming, consuming the vitae. And he looks to Hyatt because that's what Hyatt was doing. And he was like, the kind of process that is. Kubo doesn't like it very much. Frankly, I don't either.
What would I know about things that could consume vitae in nature?
Some of the things that Hyatt would know about that naturally occurring things that consume vitae, none of them would apply here. Ooh, this is absolutely some sort of supernatural presence
Yeah.
from Hyatt's experience, and the little basically clay compass
Hmm.
is the work of something of an active hand.
Right.
Hyatt, while it may be a little disturbing as not seeing that particular kind of thing happen before,
Hmm.
there was another magical presence involved. And that is the most, as soon as that was kind of brought up by Etsky, like that would
Right.
have been like, oh, that makes sense to them.
Yeah.
This
And
is a
this-
message.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Is this the same direction that Etsky was saying that they
Mhm.
were marching towards?
Absolutely.
I think we know
can
where to
south.
go. I want to watch our shadows as well as we walk southward to see whether or not they shift or change or they stretch towards it.
Your
like it
shadows,
now.
since you've been here, it's a great question. You come to realize they've all been pointing south
Mm.
and are not following the pattern of the sun in any way, shape, or form.
I think as we walk, Flick, because I'm not sure whether or not many people, it would probably only be Etsky that's seen Flick sort of like play with shadows. Flick will sort of just softly mention it. I tend to, when I wander, look towards my shadows and those around. I don't know if you all see it too, but it makes sense. All of our shadows have been facing south since we've got here, no matter where the sun is, no matter what time of day it's been since we've arrived.
Etsky would like to perceive shadow stillness now.
As Etsky starts to look at their own shadow, it does not match the shadows of anything other than people. Any person, all of their shadows are pointing to the south.
I feel like I should have noticed this before.
You had other things to focus on.
This is true. He's just kind of like amazed that this is a thing that like Flick just does. And then he looks to everyone and kind of just turns around and starts walking south.
Mm-hmm.
Well, can't let him get into his own trouble, and I'll follow.
Yep.
How far do you all want to walk south?
Until the
How
shadows
far are you willing to walk south?
Quite far.
until the shadows
Shadows don't shift
Mm.
directions. Maybe after an
Yeah.
hour, I might comment.
Your
Mhm.
shadows, they do shift depending on how straight you walk, but
Mhm.
they keep their focal point
Mhm.
at the southern exit of the valley,
Mhm.
and it is fixed. And it is different than the shadows of the shrubs, of the trees, of rocks, of grasses.
And when we use the little the lenses, do we notice anything additional? Is there a way for us to sort of see Robin in the distance? How far we may have to travel, or if there is anything beyond sort of the walking distance that we're capable of at this point in time?
Well, Robin has a spyglass, and I think said spyglass could come in quite handy. She'll probably walk with everyone and however far the group decides to walk, she will happily walk with them. And whenever the group feels like, okay, we've walked as far as we can for now, and we probably need to start turning back, is when she would probably pull up the spyglass and start to look through it towards the south. You know, to really like see what she can see. Like she's gonna try and like really like see if there's anything there, you know?
Mhm.
Like, is there anything? Does it look like the weather is different there? Does it look like there's something there, like a presence? In fact, heck, she might even put the little lens over her spyglass and then look through to see if she can like see anything funky through the lens, through her spyglass in the distance.
When you
Everything just goes
choose
upside down.
when you choose to put that crystal lens over the spyglass and look through the spyglass,
Mhm.
or holding it with one hand and like putting it like a filter over
Yeah.
the
Want us
end
to
of it,
help?
you
Sure.
will notice like nothing. Everything looks normal without
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
And then with it, you see a series of billowing like clouds in the sky, storm clouds, but they're spectral in nature.
Mm.
You can kind of see through them. And at the bottom of the valley, you're not quite close enough with the exact right angle to see where this river exits and the pathway next to it, the
Mhm.
roadway next to it.
Yeah.
But you can see this large arch, the top of it, in this very pleasant and calming greenish hue, kind of like the color one might see coming off, well, actually, the color that Hyatt often sees when they're transferring vitae to one place or another. It's very much a life essence sort of
Mm.
arch or color to that archway.
Okay. Do the spectral clouds look mean and angry or disturbed in any way, or are they just kind of floating there and waiting?
They're floating above,
Mm-hmm.
because when you look through the archway, even though you don't have a really great angle, you can
Mhm.
catch the horizon toward the top of it, and there are no clouds
Oh.
on the other side of the archway.
Ooh. Okay. Oh man. I think as she brings the spyglass down, she goes, God, how do I translate that? Look, okay. Etsky, you said the feet were moving south. Hyatt, your compass points south. Everything that has given us a direction keeps pointing this way. And I can see, when I put the lens up to my spyglass, this arch. And everything looks so beautiful on the other side of that arch. Peaceful, calm, healthy, alive. It's just waiting to be discovered. I know what needs to be done here. I don't know if any of you do, but I certainly feel like I know what needs to be done here.
And what's that?
Well, based upon, she won't outright say what Wander saw because that is Wander's story to tell, not hers. She will say, well, based upon what Wander and I gathered from the silo, the posts where the silo touched the ground, where it was hammered into the ground in particular, were the ones where the steam sort of emanated from. It's anything that has to do with the ground, anything about rooting, anything about staying in one place. This isn't what this culture is meant to do. And the fact that they are stuck here seems to be the source of this illness or whatever this is, this malaise that's come over this land. The South is calling them. And I know, Wander, that's hard when you're so afraid of the storms, but you came back.
I am not afraid of the storms. My people were afraid of the storms for centuries.
Well,
Maybe not
maybe.
centuries, but
You do remember exiting through a storm. You don't know if it was an aether storm,
Yeah.
but you do remember
Yeah,
exiting
same.
through a storm.
I left and barely made it through. The storms are a very real thing. But
They are.
if everything is to be believed, and you're correct and you do not doubt your vision, which I believe you do not because you're never one to, then we all must gather our things and head south. Whatever we can carry, whatever we can take. We do not look back.
You came back. I think you are proof that it is possible to leave this place. And before we landed, this entire valley, I didn't see a storm anywhere. So whatever is over there, it's clear as day.
A storm may brew on our way, but I believe there will be daybreak on the other side. Additionally, I'm not the only one to return. I think what has plagued our people is fueled by those who did not make it.
Oh my.
But that is something we can talk about when we're no longer standing in a potential minefield. So,
To the village? To the village!
Not quite.
No?
No. No offense, Captain Robin, but whether or not you are true does not make it our whether or not you may be right does not make it our place to tell a group of people what is or isn't their culture. True that their people historically wander, but that is not our place to decide whether this group should as well. Regardless, there is a problem plaguing this land, and even if these people are gone, there's a chance it might not depart itself. We have an obligation, or at least I do, to help heal that. So I'm going to continue marching on to wherever this compass points, and anyone who wishes to join me can.
would it not be easier to heal a land that is not also trying to be utilized by individuals?
People and land exist in symbiosis. You
Sure.
can get rid of the people and the land will find a way to exist without them. But that doesn't mean that people are inherently a harm to the land.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that for those who walk and those content to learn, we usually travel in cycles. If it is not our cycle to be here, and we are here, then the land that is accustomed to the cycle but never gets a respite from it would surely suffer as a result. But I also agree that it is not a permanent solution regardless of our decision.
It is also not a choice that can be made, honestly, if there is a problem that is forcing the choice. If we can address this issue, then the honest choice of whether your people desire to wander or not from this location can be made without duress, or with all the information. We owe them that at least.
We do. But I will have something to share with them that I simply cannot share with you. We do not have that capability.
That is
But
okay.
To be clarified, it is something that my sister, who is now passed, has shared with me. And I'm not quite sure how, but she has. And I would like to share that with them so they have a better understanding of what they're at least
Of course.
So,
But
They are your people, and you're well within your right to share with them and speak with them however you wish.
that is
It's none of our business.
We are sent to help, though. All of us.
Yes.
I also agree that it is not our decision to make. It is their village. And while I am home, I speak by no means on behalf of my people.
So, what I'm gathering is Hyatt wishes to continue traveling south as far as the compass takes her.
Correct.
The rest of you, do you wish, and then Hyatt plans on returning to the village or that area once Hyatt's found whatever,
Yes.
wherever that leads. Do the rest of you wish to accompany Hyatt, or do you wish to return to the village and wait for Hyatt's return? Because Wander has a message that Wander feels compelled to take back to the village. There's still other things that could have been or could be explored or discussed at the village. There's still the different farm equipment and other resources that people brought, significant items people brought that they could use to potentially try some things at the village while Hyatt is walking. But that's the question I have to you. Do you split up? Do you go together? There is no right answer or wrong answer here.
I think Etsky kind of agrees with Robin, but curiosity is eating at him, so he's going with Hyatt.
Okay.
I believe that Flick would like to provide Wanda with sort of the privacy and respect of their silent walker community. They wish to go with Hyatt and have that ability to wander back, to come back and assist in providing the path forward. Throughout the conversation between Hyatt and Wanda, they have progressively sort of, I guess, like, as if they kind of like themselves have been like consumed by like their own shadow in a way, just like watching, listening, and not really having a presence. And if one were to sort of like look in their direction, it would be more so a discomfort of the situation, of having silent walkers grounded rather than moving forward. So they want to assist in that move forward. And I think Flick, putting the faith in the shadows and the faith in Wanda delivering the message, wants to assist in the way of providing a path forward.
And what does that look like?
So
Going back to the village or
Flick will go
continuing
with
south?
Hyatt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just before they depart, because Robin will go with Wander and probably poke around with the ether tech while Wander speaks to their people. She's going to let them have the privacy. She will turn to Hyatt and say, I appreciate that you felt comfortable enough to speak up and lend your perspective. Thank you.
Hyatt just shrugs. It's my job.
And Leona, are you looking to go to the village or further go south and see what else is there?
She's also going to go to the village. She trusts the three of them to go south and find those answers. She will stick with Wander and then kind of like head towards the ship, grab some ether tech, and then loop back, kind of a thing, so that she can like poke around with that and see if like maybe come back to the field and like start attempting to use the farming equipment to plant and see if that makes a difference while
Mhm.
Wander is speaking to the people. So with Wander, but also giving Wander their space kind of thing.
Okay.
Mhm.
And Wander, are you set on going back to the village right away, or after hearing the other folks, are you looking at possibly going south first?
I think it would make more sense for Wander to return at this point.
Okay.
And I think because Wander doesn't need to verify what's on the other side.
Gotcha.
And he entrusts that to the three that have chosen to go.
Okay. So we're going to like wrap things up here with Hyatt and Etsky and Flick all heading south, and Wander and Robin kind of sitting and watching for a moment before they too turn and head back to the village. And then we're going to go to break. And when we return, we're going to come back to discuss the concept of monsters and what kinds of things can be done with them in Omens Rising. So get your questions together, and we'll see you all in about 5 to 10 minutes. And welcome back. We are back from break and ready to engage with any Q&A that you might have about monsters in Omens Rising. I don't see anything in particular in chat. It seems like, Godless Lawyer has a good comment there. So did Demonic Donut Gaming. But while, Chad is thinking about some questions, one of the things that came up during break is there a single solution? And the answer is no. So we have one obvious solution, or becoming obvious solution, is that they need to move on in some way and face their fear that way. But just before break, as Amer so eloquently put forth in the role of Hyatt, it is their place to make that decision. They must face their fear and then decide how they wish to confront that, or to rectify that circumstance. And that's really what it comes down to. Monsters in Omens Rising are of our own creation, and you can beat them back through force, and they will be dormant for a while. Think of it like your JRPGs or any RPG video game, and you're spawning, they respawn because they haven't actually been dealt with. They've been pushed aside. They've expended all of their energy, and they must recharge. But when one fulfills whatever that circumstance is that has that, in this case, the emotion of fear, the fear of leaving, that one may die because no one returned. Wander was the first person to return to this village of any who had left. And the main reason is that once they started walking again, they did not want to be sedentary again. They continued their travels. They found parts of themselves and parts of their culture that left them on the walking path of the silent walkers. And those who stayed behind never got to see that. It's also why, with the exception of Wander's sister, there were no fatalities with any of those explosions. That was completely accidental. And that's because, unlike what we might think of supernatural beings in other games, this is very focused. And when the person came back, two things were triggered. One, you're in danger, you must leave. And two, whatever they had in planned already, which was the explosion in the field, and she just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and was discouraged to return, a little too up close and personal. So
how would I go about making a monster if I wanted to? I guess is my curiosity.
Oh, that's a great question. So let's see here. To make a monster, it comes down to a couple of things. There needs to be, there are 7 different, I guess, rungs or ranks of monsters in Omens Rising in their power levels. And then once you've decided what power level you're looking at, you would then look at your tiers. And these tiers are what give them their actual power. You have your base emotion tier, which is the 2 least potent of monsters in the game. Then you have your tier 2, which is enhanced emotions, and that's your second. Those next 3 are that next tier of power ascending, and then the most powerful are extreme emotions, and some of those are phenomenon that are much larger or greater than what someone could put into like this situation.
Mhm.
So something with extreme emotions would actually be the cataclysmic event that had torn the world apart. As that was primarily shifted by extreme greed that caused the world to be ripped asunder. And that is kind of a highest ranking kind of monster in that world. But not all monsters have to be negative. They can be positive or negative. They're all from the same, viewpoint. So you would then figure out, is this a positive or a negative? And you would kind of work through those positive emotions and negative emotions as to which ones they are and in which type of emotion. So we have them broken down into, looks like, I think 7, again, anger, sadness, joy, love, fear, amazement, loathing, and loathing. That's the last one. So yeah, 7 different types of emotions, and they both have a positive and a negative component. So you think like, how can loathing have a positive tier? Well, skepticism can be seen as a positive version of loathing. You don't like something, you're not sure why, but you just inherently don't like it. You could be skeptical of it. And that doesn't make, that's not inherently negative. It just means that you are not going to, there can be a healthy level of skepticism, caution, contemplation. Those are things that can come from that same space. And on the flip side, something like amazement for negative would be, distraction, becoming confused or perplexed or stunned completely by the amazement. Those sorts of things are negative things that can come out of it. So it's really breaking it down into the role play of it, and then thinking about it. How powerful do I want this to be? And that will also be scope. So the lowest level ones are going to be your local urban legends of that particular village or town. So this is a tier 1. It's actually a rank. I think I went with rank 1 even. Might have gone with rank 2 on this one, rank 2 on this one, but it's still a tier 1 because it's localized and doesn't have a large scope to it. And then from there, I went with fear as the base, negative emotion. The opposite of fear is excitement. So yeah, you kind of play around with that sort of thing.
That's very cool.
But that's how you would kind of go about it. And we have a document for us behind the scenes, and we will pretty it up and put in a section instead of a monsters manual or an appendix of monsters. It'll be kind of a how to create your own with some examples at the different rankings of them. We have a question from Godless Lawyer that's not monster related, but regarded the help mechanic. Does the replacement card have to come from the 2 that the helper has, or do they also draw and discard 2? No, it comes from the 2 that the helper already has. So if somebody is looking to help, they would look at their 2 cards and look to enhance what's already there, because they're not putting in the same level of action and intentionality that the original person is in this circumstance. But it's not limited to one person. Literally everybody that's in that space. So for example, let's say all 5 people, went to the, well, and they're all going to investigate the well. I would have taken whoever decided to start it. In this case, it was Hyatt. And would have just had them start the investigation of it. They would declare what, part of self they wanted to go, what angle they're going at it from, and then everybody else would describe how they're helping. And we would just go around the circle, and whoever had a better card to basically increase what was already played could take the one off the table that's already there and replace it with a better card. And we would just go until basically you had the best card of everyone who's helping. They don't necessarily take over the task, but what they're doing is they are increasing the success mechanically as well as role play wise of whatever it is they're doing. So, Godless Lawyer asked if someone plays a better card, do they effectively take over the task? No, they just have, I guess, whatever their help action has a bigger influence on the result. And so, me as a GM, I would look at what the intention was for success and then what the help action was that pushed it further over the threshold. And I would kind of take and use both of those to form the response that I would give. And it gives me a lot of different details to work with by having people actually say, how are you helping? Not just, I help. Okay, great. What does that action look like? Because I want to be able to play off what the characters are actually doing so I can keep the plot character centric. I can keep the action character centric, not world centric or, my fan fiction novel in the background centric. That's kind of what I'm doing there.
I know that when Robin was looking through the spyglass, they couldn't see whatever was going to be down there. I was going to have Etsky like help by like charming the lens itself. Effectively doing exactly what Robin was smart enough to do on her own, but still that's kind of one way to throw out the help action, but I had to wait until it was like declared and all that.
Yeah. Then the next question we have from Chantel. So if you're facing a positive emotion, does that change the kinds of impact it can have? Can it have both the positive and negative effects? Technically, it could have both positive and negative effects depending on the perspective coming into play. That really has to do with the story in which is being shaped. If a positive manifestation or monster is creating some great bounty here, is it throwing off the balance somewhere else? That really is going to depend on the type of game that you're playing, and you can totally do that, but it doesn't have to be. So yeah, like if you get on the naughty list, does Santa kill you? No, Santa doesn't have to kill you on the naughty list. What kinds of things do the rest of you, how was your interaction with what we were seeing when it comes to a monster of sorts? Because it was more of a mystery than necessarily a foe.
I was thinking about it in more Etsky lens. For Etsky, it's monsters are monsters. TM. They have like whole forms. Like there are things that have like effects and they do things, but they have like a solid form, and half of the time someone fights it like combatively. And so something like that is something they would have reserved for, I don't know, speaking with just generalized things. So it's kind of confusing for him how to approach it. He was just like, do I kill it? Is it killable? Do I chat with it? Does it need counseling? And I think that was like both in character and me myself. I was just like, what's going on here? Because I know I had an idea in my head about what was going on, and I was very wrong.
Well, I mean, you had a little bit of culture shock there. I mean, the culture that Etsky's from, most of their interactions with monsters has been combative, has been confrontation. It hasn't been plagues or puzzles. So that's perfect for that kind of disconnect in this circumstance. How did you feel about it as a player compared to other games or systems?
I felt like it was like I spent I mean, it was about the same as other times because I'm a little stupid, but I spent a lot of time being like, how do I, I'm coming from the D&D mindset. You're just like, how do I solve this problem? And which is good. It's kind of like the point. So I enjoyed it. I liked all the little bits and bobs, and I was kind of like, once the archway hit, I was just like, yes, here we go. The answers, the promised land. I enjoyed it. It required a lot more thinking, which I like. As far as like kind of more options than shoot it, rather.
Gotcha. Who wants to go next?
Yeah,
What were your impressions?
I was going to agree with Jamal. I thought that it felt like a little bit more like personal and invested, particularly because of the clues and things like that. So you kind of got the emotion, and it was associated with the monster, like the monster, like we had fear, and everything kind of like subtly pointed in that direction, and then figurative, like actually literally pointed a direction. But then I like the fact that you are provided with the opportunity, as Jamar said, with and as Emma like has mentioned, multiple different ways to solve the problem in a sense, which I find that you sometimes don't get that opportunity from with other games. And it just felt more naturally flowing, like, the fear related monster with the situation, everything kind of played its own part, and everything sort of rolled out well, and you could see that this was what was going on, like, slowly as we all interacted. And it was something that we all could interact with as well. It wasn't necessarily just like Hyatt knows things about like the earth, and can you got the compass, or Wander and Flick are silent walkers, so they know it from like this point of view. Everyone had the ability to play a role in a monster encounter, which I find is not something that I've really seen or been exposed to a lot of. And I thought that was really good and really cool.
Awesome. Who else? What were your reactions? How did you like it, or what didn't you like about it? Because we're still in the alpha playtest. It's not all gravy necessarily. Leona, what are your thoughts? You're on mute.
Muted.
I am muted. I
you go.
apologize. Still kind of contemplating, but I did enjoy it. It wasn't like I feel like most times when we're talking about monsters, we're talking about like diving into dungeons and like, okay, maybe there's a puzzle here or there, and that's kind of it, and then it's like, oh, surprise, here is your monster, behold. Or, you solve a riddle, here is your monster, behold, and now you must attack them. And this was not that. This was a monster that was all around us, and it's almost like a bigger picture monster, like it's a bigger problem. And, the fact that we are going to have to be creative in how we solve it. And, it's kind of like how we were discussing at break. Robin could absolutely pack everyone up in her ship and transport them. But that doesn't get rid of the monster. That doesn't solve the issue, because that's not how you vanquish the monster. That's running away from the monster.
Mm-hmm.
And that mentioned, the fact that you mentioned that in particular was very intriguing to me, because it was like, okay, yes, there are multiple solutions, but not every solution will fit.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that.
Or they'll have residual effects.
Yeah.
I think one thing I was thinking about it just now, and it's a lot like, and this is going to sound like Avi, duh, but it's a lot like experiencing a novel rather than playing a game, which is not bad. It's just it's a strange sensation of like, I'm going to grab this thing and swing it and destroy all spirits or something like that. And as opposed to like I can't. No one's the hero here. Like even if we, tell everyone it's not like we won or anything like that. It's like, it was gonna be one thing or another, and we're just kind of like the messengers at that point. And
They still have to choose.
yeah, and like when you have a hero complex, you're like, where's my chance to swing my shiny flaming sword? But
They exist. Those chances exist. This just isn't one of them.
No, it's not. But that's like that dissonance is why I like playing
Mhm.
this. It's like I didn't come to do that right now.
Gotcha. Fun?
Additionally, to kind of I guess piggyback off that, but like Amber said, even if like we give them that decision, that doesn't always fix the problem of the nature of the actual world and land around them, regardless of whether they stay, whether they move. There's more to that problem than just the people, or like in this instance, that the monster spans more than just that.
Mhm.
And that the monster is affecting more things than just individuals, or sentient beings that we can communicate on with language. I think it's a very I personally find this system very like refreshing, because you do a lot with one simple thing, and that's all you need to do, because it's all you need to do to continue moving the story forward, and that's the only reason you do checks in this game. And
Mhm.
so I find that very refreshing, because it's not like you make a bunch of checks you have like 15 turns and there's 7 people all trying to fight one monster, so you spend 3 hours on one combat fight.
Oh my
As
god.
much as those are sometimes fun, it's also really refreshing when all you have to do is look at something, touch it, have a seance with somebody real quick, and be like, cool, I have another direction moving forward. So yeah, that's kind of like one of the things I love about it, is how easy it is to really dive into the story side of things, and also utilize those checks when necessary, to drive the narrative forward.
Yeah. And the pacing is really just up to that particular story. Do you want
Yeah.
it to be long and drawn out? Does it need to be? Does it need to be a montage of things instead? Is it, in this case, it was more of a puzzle and you're collecting clues along the way. Each one can have its own feel based on how you choose to craft it and interact with it. The GM crafting it, the players interacting with it, and see where it takes you from there. Hammer? Thoughts?
I'm not sure I have much to add on what's already been said. The question I had sort of got touched upon, but I will ask it anyways,
Mhm.
which is, so is there any sort of, because you just mentioned that, like, it can be as long or short as the story demands. Is there any structure or guidelines for how much needs to be accomplished to handle a specific tier or type of monster?
Because it's narrative, we currently don't have any sort of like hard and fast guide in that
Mhm.
regard. It may be something that's worthwhile putting in to give people a place to begin and to modify from, but not at this stage. We don't have one built. But that's a good note, and I'm going to take that note right now.
Yeah, I had that thought too. I was just like, if there's a guide, what's the guide to kill, or
Mhm.
I think that'd be a very
talk to?
good, but I would agree that I think it'd be a very good thing to have in, even if it's like a loose reference point, especially for DMs who are either new to DMing or don't know how to scale something to the players that they're dealing with or the characters that they're
Mhm.
working with. It'd be very good to have something there for new GMs who are just trying to get familiar with the system. Like, what does a tier 3 monster look like versus a tier 4?
Well, Well, we
might
do have descriptions of that
Oh,
per se, but not
yeah.
necessarily how to kill them. It's
Well-
more about
well-
how they manifest and what kind
Correct.
of
Mm.
belief is needed in order
And
for them
with-
to be created.
I mean, I think also
With
having like a
those
little bit of
manifestations.
Mm. I think
Sorry,
having a little bit of structure for
Mhm.
what needs
Mhm.
be done or how much needs to be done to overcome can help a lot of players understand like where we are in the story as well of this
Yeah.
particular problem.
I think
Yeah,
also
no, I like it.
maybe not killing is a good word, but solving I think is a better
Yeah,
word.
overcoming.
Yeah, overcoming is another. Yeah, a good
Yeah.
sense.
Solving is the ideal
Mhm.
outcome, but you don't
Yes.
always solve. Like
No.
sometimes you might end up just not succeeding, being like, okay, we do need to put them all on the Robin's airship and run.
Yeah, sometimes
Mhm.
it's persistence or survival
Mhm.
that is victory in the sense of this game.
Yeah.
Um,
And Chantel brought up a great point in chat. If the fear never truly goes away, does that mean that the monster theoretically never has gone away? And that's a good question. And Godless Lawyer says, I'm not sure monster is the right word. We're using the term monster right now because technically, and we're going to have to give up on it. I realize that because it's been changed through usage. But technically, monster does not have morality. Monster is simply the manifestation of an omen. It has the same root word as the word omen when you follow it etymologically. And it is literally the manifestation of an omen. So if you get a blessing, that is the manifestation of an omen. If you are cursed, that is a manifestation of an omen. Those are all technically monsters, linguistically speaking, but that is not the popular usage. So you're right. We're going to have to look at what words are there and how we want to name it. And who knows? Maybe when, not if, we launch a Patreon or something, we can do some sort of like naming contest for them with our Patreon supporters, and people can
Harbinger is a little ominous too, but it is closer.
yeah, it still
Yeah.
brings a lot of. It would be definitely expand more, but I also think it still gives a negative connotation, which not all of those may be negative.
'Cause
Oh
some-
no, not at all. I mean, some of
Yeah,
the examples that are
exactly.
in here are basically like an angel would basically fall into the same category as a monster in this. You have the archons of trust, which is not the same as Corvo, the keeper of malice. Like these are completely different types of monsters.
There's
But
the familiar.
yeah,
that's-
so
I think that association is also definitely a cultural thing because, like,
Mhm.
as I mentioned at the start,
yeah,
their monster per se not always is like the closer thing to monsters as they're understood in a lot of Islamic folklore is jinn, but jinn is not an inherently negative thing,
Mhm.
right? Culturally, it is just a entirely other race beings.
Yeah. otherworldly, right?
Not
Sort of.
necessarily otherworldly. They are of this world,
Okay.
and they are a part of it. They coexist with us. They're just different.
Oh. So they're not even like supernatural in that sense, like some other cultures have. That's good to know.
Yeah.
I dig it. Yeah, and that's a good point. And so, what do we call them?
Cool aether creatures.
And I know that that's been something that's been brought up a couple of times, but and yeah, Godless Lair does point out that the TTRPG culture does kind of taint the definition of monster, or at least it colors it, whether or not we want to use the word taint with the negative connotations there, but it does give it a very specific context. And it's different from what we're doing. So we are getting really close to time. And so let's get to our outros. Let's start with Amber and work our way back around. So Amber, remind us who you are and where we can find you.
Hi, I'm Ramirez. You can find me most places on the internet at Amarez. Twitter is the best spot if you want to keep up to date with what I'm working on. I do writing, game design, and streaming. In terms of streaming, you can catch me on Saturday mornings for the next while on the Lark Network as part of the Super Splash of Color Masks campaign we're running. And then also on Utopia Every other Friday. We just had our latest episode last Friday, and then 2 Fridays from then on and so forth. Running Chimera, Cape and Blade. Speaking of, Chimera is finally available for public consumption. The first public playset is available on itch now. So if you head over to play.chimera.games, you can check it out. That's all I got.
Thank you, Amber. Leona.
You're muted
I
again.
am so muted again. Hello, my name is Leanna. You can find me on Twitter at the Leanna Maple. And that is the best place to follow me and to keep up with what the heck I'm doing, because a lot of it is under NDA. I am the person behind Maple Intersectionality Consulting, and so I help make your tabletop RPG or whatever it is that you're working on a little bit more diverse, inclusive, and intersectional. And if I can help you in any way, please let me know. I also am a part of Vibrant Legends, a all BIMPOC one-shot series that runs every second Saturday. We're switching it up every second Saturday over on the Dicey Amazons channel at 2 p.m. PST. So that would have been this afternoon, earlier today. So if you are BIMPOC, please feel free to join us. And if you are not, we would love to have you in the audience. But yeah, follow me on Twitter to find out about everything else that I do.
Thank you, Leona. And Fen.
Hello, I'm Fen. I'm on the internet at Fenachini, depending on the many ways you can say my overall name. You can follow me on Twitter. It's where most of the stuff is happening when it comes to my life and the things I do on the internet. So yeah, that's it. I stream here. I stream other places. I write for people. I design for people. Too long, didn't read. I do things.
And the things. So Jamar, tell us about the things you do and where we can find you.
Oh Lord, it's me, Jamar. I'm on the internet sometimes. I'm making a graphic novel, I guess. This is very new, like 24 hours new. And you can find me on Twitter at Poppy Wolves, like Poppy, like Spanish for father, wolves. But there's nothing really there yet. It's just me being a meme, but you can also at me.
Thank you, Jamar. And last but not least, Wassa. Or as we said last week, Wassa.
Wassa here. Wassa here. Oh goodness, Wassa here. In the lands of the NDAs and the Twitter sphere, find me on Wasabotte. That's WASABOTTE or Wasabotte. Depends. Don't mind however way you say it. I will use that. I write things. In my free time, I sometimes try to draw things, but mostly I am known to write things and be a meme on the internet in the streams. But that's pretty much it. Watch this space when it comes to Aether Tech stuff, and yeah, that's me. That's me.
Thank you, Wassa. And I'm Chris Geary. You can find me on Twitter at Chris Geary. You can find me here in Twitch with the same handle. You can find us one more week for this alpha playtest. We will be back in 1 week for our fourth and final episode of this alpha playtest. And then you can find us the next one that has been sorted for sure. We'll be launching on We Are Nerdsmith July 5th, 12th and 19th, or not July, June 5th, 12th and 19th. And then also in June, starting on Mondays, but we're not sure which Monday yet, the Hype Goblin, we will have a separate one. On We Are Nerdsmith, we'll be looking at our encounter mechanics and the three types, categories of encounters that we have in Omens Rising. We have our exploration encounters, our social encounters, and our conflict encounters. We then have on Hype Goblin, we're going to be looking at a variety of different give and take, the different relationships of the duality of the world and how things are a series of balance and give and take, or give and receive in many ways. So until next time, have a wonderful evening and thank you for joining us.